Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of Box in a Garage. I'm your host Johnny Box, and today we're gonna, well, as the title of the video says, clean up a carb, repair a carb, and then rebuild the carb. Now, all three of those parts, I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm talking about. So, had this all covered up last night. Keep everything clean. Check out my previous video if you wanted to watch me taking it apart. I just did a time lapse. Not a whole lot to see, but you can see how I got to this point. Anyways, as you can see, lots and lots of different parts, this and that I need to go through and finish getting all cleaned up. But you know, we'll get to that. First off, like I said before, this is on my Ford, and it's a Quadrajet made by Rochester. And so it's not the one that was made to go, it's not the carburetor that's made to go on this truck. This is actually made to go on a 1978 Cadillac, something like that. But it should work just fine. You know, it's not like there's a bunch of electronics that need to be hooked up to this. This has got all the same vacuum ports that the Holly would have been on this F-150 would have had. So everything will work fine. I actually got to plug off a few ports. No big deal. Anyway, what I'm going to actually end up doing is showing you guys a cleanup on this just in a time lapse. I got to go get through, clean up all these little things, but as soon as I start putting things back together, we're going to get back into the slow speed and maybe a little bit of explanation about some of the things on this Rochester Quadrajet. A lot of people get all freaked out by them. I don't know, I'm not too worried about it, and I've never touched one before, so I think you might be able to handle it. I don't know though. I don't know. I don't know you. You don't know me. You probably know me a little better than I know you, but that's okay. We'll get it all fixed up, cleaned up, repaired, rejuvenated, repaired, replaced. Okay, now you can see we're in here for a little bit closer look. One thing, this carb, man, I wouldn't be super surprised if it actually has been rebuilt somewhat recently. Everything looks pretty good. Like this needle and seat looks like it's been replaced recently. So the reason that I think that they were still having trouble comes from down here. They put this epoxy on the bottom of these wells, which are down in the bottom of your bowl that fills up with fuel in the center of these. I know it's goofy. Most Hollies are on the external. These have got a centrally located one. And down here in these wells, which are in the bottom of those, they put this epoxy on here. And with this one, this epoxy is actually totally separated on the one side. So we got to get this all cleaned off, because what actually ends up happening is gas drips out of this and it goes straight into your intake manifold without going through the jets, which, you know, that ain't good. And that's actually why I've been having some hard start issues, some performance issues. We're going to get these all cleaned up and resealed. And just so you know, that's something to be aware of if you're ever taking apart a Rochester Quadrajet. I think I'm going to switch it over to fast speed mode. Okay, at this point, we're going to take a pause. This epoxy down below on these wells, some of it was loose and peeling off, so I peeled off the rest of it, got it nice cleaned off, found some other spots that were loose. What I'm going to do is get a little bit of emery cloth, something scratchy, you know, something like steel wool work, just to get it, you know, scratched up a little bit. We want a nice rough surface that we're cleaning up with this. I got some of this seal all It's resistant to gas, and I think it'll work. I mean, this has just got like an epoxy type stuff on there. I mean, I'm gonna try it. Okay, so we're back. It's been just a little bit of time. This stuff takes, it said like 5 minutes, and it's tacky, so it ain't gonna go anywhere. But it says like 6 hours before it's ready to have full use on it. So we're not going to start the truck up tonight. It needs to rest overnight. But I believe, we could probably put it back together and wait until tomorrow afternoon to put everything back on the truck. But right now, what I'm gonna do is I think we're gonna go regular speed and go through all the things of putting it together. So we're gonna start with the accelerator pump. I'm also gonna keep this kit, all the now old pieces. Actually, this one is quite a bit firmer, so that's probably a good thing. Spring goes in, or whatever you want to call it, dually bob goes in around there. We take our spring, put it back on, press it down, and our washer goes back on. Accelerator pump rebuilt. So, a needle in the seat go on the bottom of this, but I still have epoxy on here, so I'm going to get a couple of blocks. Okay. Now, we'll take our jets, take a little bit of oil, and actually I'm just going to dab it on the threads here. I'm going to take the needle nose, gently grab it, and set her down into place. And then take our flathead and carefully making sure that we get a nice clean start to the threads, snug. So about like, say, that, and it's good. Okay, then next we're gonna put the check ball in. So I'm gonna take my needle nose again. This goes down in a little hole here. It's a little bit elevated higher than the jets. Drop that down in that hole. And then this flat tip with the long dude goes in there. So we're gonna keep the needle over here, because when we put in the float bowl is when we're gonna put that. Handy needle nose again. Set that in there. And you want a nice big screwdriver that makes it all the way across, because you don't want to go inside of that where the needle rides. And just snug. Here we've also got this little, on this one, got this little shot glass that fits over here on this side, like so. It's got little notches, so it can only go in one way. It'll actually fully go down. So that makes that easy. Okay, now that we have the jets in and we have the seat in and snug, next thing you want to do is get your needle here. Get this little clip on it. It's a little tiny wire clip. Whoops. Make sure it stays on it. Keep track of it. You don't want to lose that. Oh, scared me for a sec. Don't lose any of that. But we want to grab this straight, half moon looking thing, and that's going to slip right through this float. That's kind of our hinge. Then you're also going to take the needle, and it hooks right up in here on the back side. I don't know if you can see that or not, but in between this pin and, well, you know, it goes up like just like that. And it just kind of dangles there, and you be real careful with it. Don't drop it like I just did. Okay, then that needle should fall into that seat relatively easily. Then everything fall into place, the float going down completely, and this seat clip locked into place. It's seated. So I'm gonna grab the directions, because this is actually a really important part of these Quadrajets. You wanna make sure that the float is set right. Probably important on other carburetors too, but definitely important on these, especially since you gotta tear the whole carb apart if you wanna get back to this. So I'm gonna grab the instructions and find the spot about setting the float. Okay. So what it needs to do is we want to gently push the float down against the needle. With it, you can also see that once the C-clip or the pin in here starts to move, you're there. And this says it wants to be 3/16 at toe end. If we push, give it light pressure, we're at about, what in the world, 1/32. 30 seconds is where we want to be. We're at about 30 seconds. So we actually need to carefully again grab this float. You can grab it right at the C-clip, very gently. Try and keep everything together again. Pull it up. Now, man. Okay, so what we need to do is, I was at 22:30 seconds, so we need to gently bend this in this direction. You can see it's kind of got a V slot in it, and that's where you make your adjustment. And we were at 22:30 seconds. We want to be at about 3:30 seconds, so we want to move it about that much. But be very careful and move it very little at a time, because you don't want to go back and forth, back and forth. As much as it is a pain, you don't want to break this float, and then you're off trying to find a new float, and that's no fun. It looks like we need to move a little bit more. I only moved it 2:30 seconds. A little bit. And then again, carefully take my needle once again. Good news is, if you didn't replace the float, you probably don't need to do this. I didn't replace the float. This was already in here, but whoever did this rebuild didn't set their float. It's right on the money. 30 seconds. That's where we want to be. Now we can leave that in there. It is set. Next thing we want to do is grab our primary needle, or primary metering needles, place, and then it won't move. Okay. We've got this piece of plastic. It's just a retainer thing for the float and all. I take that back. I'm mistaken. So I'm gonna pop this back out. Yes. Before you put in the metering needles, put in this plastic retainer for the float. And you still need to hit those jets, which you kind of got to now do somewhat blind. But a little bit of patience, it'll drop in just like that. Wrong again, folks. I missed. This spring either goes up in here or down in that hole. We'll say down in that hole. And then these metering needles for the primaries can go together. There it is. You can see it's under the weight of that spring now, and those needles are freely moving inside those jets. So let me push it down and push in this retainer. And everything should still freely move that little bit. Okay. Bit of oil on there just for first times. On the top side of this gasket's got a little knockout up here near the middle. This is going to slide under that bracket, so you kind of and then come back through, take a look, make sure all the holes line up in such a way that you feel is adequate. The choke assembly together first. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be fun. Then over in here goes one of these screws. I think it's this one here. Could just never go in dry. Grab our accelerator, pump again. This down into here. That over there. We'll take our top. Line up our accelerator, line up our vacuum holes, or whatever them things are. And it should just fall in there. Start with these tapered head screws. This one's must be somewhat newer because all these heads are Torx, which, you know, could be worse. But just get them in there, get them started. Now we want to get every single one of these top ones started before we tighten any of them up. Wow, we're actually going to get the bottom ones started as well. Every single screw in the body of this will want to be started before we do a full tighten. That way everything tightens down nice and even around all the gaskets and that. So like I said, the tapered heads go in there. The long ones go in the front. Those are actually going to go all the way down and through the bottom as well, so we can't tighten those yet. Them all just run in. Okay, we're all run in. Now we're going to take and flip this. And the next part of it is gonna go together now. I think it goes like that. Oh, don't forget the gasket. Must be. Okay, then two of these holes down here, right there, right there. Run these down. Again, just kind of hand tight and tight, and tight. Then we're going to make sure we keep these screws where we want them, the long ones. Now that the bottom plate is together, we can then come up top, and these long screws can start into their holes. Probably gonna do, I'd probably say like, I don't know, not even 10 foot-pounds. And then we're gonna do it a second time, making sure that they're all even. You may even wanna do it a third, fourth, fifth. I ain't gonna stop you. We've got the two on the bottom, which you can add to your sequence up top, but I'm just gonna do them after. We're gonna grab the metering needles for the secondary. They're gonna kind of fall in right through here in this. They kind of just, you just kind of get them to where they fall in, and this hanger kind of wraps around there, and then there's this little tiny screw with flathead on it to keep track of. It'll then go in there. But that's basically essentially the majority of it. Next thing we're gonna wanna remember to get all these hooks kind of into place. First thing I'm gonna hook up is the accelerator pump. Exactly how it goes together easily. That gets put in there, and then it just simply comes, once you get it into the slot, all the way, this will come up and it's gonna fall in to this slot on top, which is up above this. And we'll push this down, and the goal is to line this hole up on this arm with the pin. It'll then slide through, but we can just simply I try and leave a gap and not bottom it out like I did. With the arm on there, so that when you hit the gas, hit the accelerator, it hits the accelerator pump. Okay. Now we want to get the choke assembly put together, which is on the other side. This can be a little bit trickier, but this one is not going to be easy. This arm kind of needs to hook on something down in there. I can't really remember. And you'll know that you have it in there right when you move up and down on this arm and it moves the choke stuff. This is kind of a square hole, so that as this moves, your choke flat moves. We're going to put another piece together somehow. There we go. So it goes on there, so when this thing compresses, it shouldn't move that flapper actually. It just simply, when this is compressed, holds this from opening everything. You just need the choke to be able to move freely at this point. Then we're gonna take this, this is what actually does the choke stuff. So, it normally be closed, or what you wanna do is start with it closed and slowly turn this until it just makes contact with the choke, and that's where we want to be. That's our money spot. Just good on there. And I tell you what, folks, that is about it. There is a Quadrajet, a Rochester Quadrajet rebuild. You know, a lot of people give these things a bad name, or think that they're not so good, but I don't think I'm gonna have a problem with it. We'll see next time when I go and put this thing in and we get it all tuned up and exactly the way it needs to be. But I got some pretty good confidence. Until next time, I'm Johnny Box. This has been Box in a Garage. Have a good one.